Okay, welcome. I'm William Boyd, on the faculty here at the law school and the director of the Energy Innovation Initiative, and I want to welcome all of you to the kickoff event for our Energy Innovation Series, which is co-sponsored by RACI, the Renewable and Sustainable Energy Institute, as part of their big energy series that they do across the campus. We're very thankful to RACI. I also want to thank Mark Safdie, the Worth Chair of Sustainability at the University of Colorado Denver School of Public Affairs. Mark wears many hats. He's the chair of the Energy and Infrastructure Practice Group at Holland & Hart, which I suspect is more than a full-time job. He's now the new Worth Chair at the University of Colorado Denver School of Public Affairs, and he is an adjunct professor here at the law school where he teaches a very popular course on renewable energy project finance. So we're very happy to have him co-sponsoring this event. Mark brought Søren to us, and we're very happy about that. And I'm going to let Mark introduce Søren in a moment. I also want to thank the sponsors of the Energy Innovation Initiative, which are listed in the program, and then just say a couple of things about future events. On October 22nd, in this room, Tony Clark, who is a FERC commissioner and a former PUC commissioner from North Dakota, I think he was the head of NARUC, the North American Regulated Utility Commissioners Association, will be here giving our annual Schultz Lecture on Energy. And he's a great speaker, wonderful man, was here last year for a conference that we did. I think it'll be an excellent event, so I hope to see some of you here for that. That's at 5:30, October 22nd in this room. On Halloween, in the afternoon from 2 to 5, we have a conference, a half-day conference on cross-border energy transactions, focusing primarily on oil and gas in North America, with a keynote from Marcelo Morales, who was at Pemex and is now at an energy consulting firm in Mexico, talking specifically about some of the efforts to liberalize and open up the oil and gas sector in Mexico. That will also have a panel discussion. We have a sustainability symposium, sustainability and natural resource industries, that we will be hosting in February, late February, February 28th and March 1st in this room. And then another conference on property rights, a comparative conference on property rights in spectrum, water, and natural resources that we'll be doing in April. And I think these are listed on our website. We can get information to you if you're interested. So thank you all for coming. Tonight's event is sure to be a wonderful kickoff for the series, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark Safdie to introduce our speaker.
I encourage all of you to read the summary of Søren's background in the program brochure, because I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you a couple of things about Søren so that you can be properly prepared to hear his remarks. Søren Hermansen is a farmer. Now, there are a lot of things I could tell you about Søren. I just learned a new one about how his Time magazine Environmental Hero of the Year award is larger than the one given Arnold Schwarzenegger. But Søren is a farmer. As a farmer, Søren understands the strength of concepts like never eat your seed corn. The strength of concepts like the one my grandfather, who was a homesteader in Montana in 1913, understood when he needed water for his cattle and some irrigation, and he put up a windmill because there was no electricity for the first 30 years he owned his farm. Søren is an innovator, a frighteningly competent innovator who will, if you quote to him a passage or a saying from our homegrown local American favorite innovator Steve Jobs, Søren will tell you that the Jobs quote was actually from Kierkegaard. So you want to watch yourself when you think and talk about innovation around Søren. Søren is also a technologist of the best kind. Not one of those guys who can try to explain to you something and leave you more confused than you were. Søren, I tried to get an opportunity to have him explain to me at NREL this afternoon how a fuel cell works. And I think he can do it, but he didn't want to. And there was so much going on, but I think he can explain to you how it works. Finally, I think what I've learned about Søren in our time together is that more than anything else, Mr. Hermansen is a believer in the power of community. I think you're going to hear from him this evening and enjoy hearing a lot about the power of community, about the importance of community, and about how community is really what makes people happy and productive and binds people together. So Søren, the farmer, without any further ado, please welcome Søren Hermansen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is this okay? Can you hear what I say? I don't like to stand behind a microphone because that kind of makes me an expert trying to talk to an audience. I'd like to be a participant, participate in a discussion more than just making a talk. So this introduction kind of opens up for questions. So if there's any questions, you just raise your hand or stand up or shout, and then I'll try to break it up and get this question, because I think that's important. If there's anything interesting here you want to cut through and get some details on, you just do that. Because this is more like a community. I know this is also a lecture for students, so I'm lecturing a little bit, and I'm talking very much. I'll thank you very much for the introductions. They were way too kind, because you don't really know the other sides of me. It is always nice to be announced to be all the good things, but you could say that I'm also born and raised on an island, so I'm an islander. I'm one of these rednecks that kind of don't believe in cities and administration from a central government. I just don't believe that. That's not so good, because we live in a democracy, and I don't really trust that. So that's one more point I'd like to touch upon. The other thing is also that I believe that creation and innovation come from the rural area more than from the cities. Because the cities, they are so stressed and troubled with many other things. They have to administrate their lives there. So they don't have time for that. I mean, a farmer or a blacksmith or somebody else who is meant to sort out problems, they'll be more innovative. But, I mean, this is just black and white. Of course, there's a lot of creative people in cities. I know a lot of them. The other thing I'll do before I start my presentation to kind of pay a little kind of honor, respect to my old friend Randy Udall. I'm here also because of Randy. Randy, he was a very good friend of mine. I really liked him. He taught me how to make a presentation funny and at the same time direct and evil. Or he could be serious and make people laugh. And I tried to learn that. I tried to pick that up, and in meetings try to have this in mind all the time. Don't forget that people spend time. They left home to come to a place to have both some inspiration and some fun, and to be enlightened and come back with a feeling of that this was good, this was worth the money to go to this meeting. I was meant to be here and be on a walk with him, but I'll walk with you instead of. So that'll make it. So I hope that you understand that this is also a little bit emotional for me. I have a few slides of his here. I pinched them from his presentation because he was a character of a very special kind. And I use these slides as images for what I want to say. So let's start. In 1997, my island was so fortunate to win an election from, a competition from the Danish government sent out to win and be the Danish energy island. So this is what we kind of faced. A lot of different ideas about what was that all about actually. It started in the 70s with oil crisis in Denmark. You probably also had oil crisis here, where I don't really think you ever kind of accepted that America could have oil crisis. But because you have a different feeling about energy. We certainly felt being a very small country. Do you know where Denmark is? Oh, well, some people think that Denmark is a capital or a town in Sweden or something like that. But that's okay, because we used to own Sweden and Norway and England. But that's a long time ago, and time kind of have erased that memory completely. We are now just this tiny little nation, and we felt the oil crisis badly. We had car-free Sundays, which was actually quite good. I was not so old. People walked up and down the highway, and there was no cars there at all. That was quite interesting, and that made us think we are depending so much on oil that we can't have a thriving, a developing country. We need to make a new energy strategy. So part of the community wanted to have nuclear power. They worked hard to get that. But the most people, they want to have a green development sector. We can be self-supplied by wind, solar, and biomass and work that way. And finally, in 1985, we decided not to have nuclear power. We have a research institute like NREL. It's not as big as NREL is today, but I was here some years ago. That was before. That was more similar. We have RESO Research Institute, and they used to be researching nuclear power. Today, they are researching in wind power and solar energy and all the other things. So we converted. So that's interesting that we actually made that decision in '85. So in the late 90s, after Kyoto, you know the climate top meeting, Kyoto. That was 3 years after the Brundtland report and the first Rio meeting, where they decided to cut down CO2 emissions. And there was a more nature-directed perspective in that. We had a minister called Mr. Svend Auken. He was the minister of energy at that time, energy and environment. He set up these targets. He said he promised in Kyoto that Denmark would cut down 21% of the CO2 emission at that time. And there, I mean, everybody kind of fell over and said that this is not possible. But Sweden and Germany joined and said together that we will cut down 21%. And that was the start of climate action plans with binding contracts. So these contractual agreements actually set the tone and set the direction for energy development. But then he came home and somebody said to him, but how will you do that? I don't know, he said, but we will find out. We'll make an island or a place, kind of the test site for development of energy structures. So Samso won this. So this means that in 1997 we pledged to give up fossil fuels and convert to 100% renewable energy. I'm also a cartoon hero. I'm not just a time hero. That's also. I have a tough time. My wife I keep on asking her to make me a cape of some kind, so I can kind of be this. But she hasn't made that yet. It's a little bit like a cape on this picture. But this was in 1997. We are a small conservative farming community. Imagine that this message came from central top-down administration and was sent out to us as a message. You are now going to be the island that will demonstrate that Denmark can go all the way and be 100% renewable. I mean, I know, Mike, that you are from a farming community. What would you think about having that message sent to you? You would personally, but being a farmer, imagine all these farmers. They said it will probably never happen. The first public meetings we had in meeting houses on Samso when I announced this. I have to say that I was the first staff. I was hired to fulfill this ambition. I was hired by the Samso Energy and Environment Office, which was an existing NGO who took this project on. And I had these meetings. I was a little bit energetic and kind of fired up with the ambition to fulfill this project here. And I said this out in this meeting. You guys, we are now going to make this island famous and we're going to make this green transition. What do you think about that? And the audience became completely quiet. And I could feel that they were thinking, this sounds expensive. It sounds complicated. It sounds like something we don't want to get involved in. So you can do that, but leave me out of it. And that was the first impression. I kind of thought, this is going to be a tough game to make this. So this is what I'm trying to talk about. I have invented a new word. I hope there's no English teachers here, because this is probably, I hope it'll be in the dictionary soon, but a commonity, it's a contraction of common plus community. So you understand the phrase, a common? This is something that was highly evaluated and valuated in rural areas, because we were depending on having access to a common of some kind. Common grazing, common forest, common whatever, water for that kind. So you say, what is a modern common? And you can. This is one discussion. What is a modern community? This is another discussion. What makes community? I think a commonity is a discussion we need to have. What is a commonity? Because this is the value of a community administrating a common of some kind. This could be clean, green energy or new development. This could also be a new definition. Sorry. This could be a new definition of sustainability. What does it mean to be sustainable? I mean, everybody uses this word, but use it for all kinds of things. Also in marketing and advertising, use sustainability. Everything can be sustainable. But I think we need to define what is sustainability to us and what makes that valuable for a community. Samso is beautiful. That's a beautiful place. I actually just made a presentation in Vermont. And the people of Vermont, they think Vermont is too beautiful for green development. It's already green and beautiful, and they can't have wind turbines here. They are actually leaning on you guys. They said to me in this public meeting, we expect the Midwest to make place for wind turbines, so we can save these precious hills there in Vermont. Isn't that fine? They leave it to you guys to be green. Samso is really, I mean, we are also green. I could have said the same thing. Samso would export this. This is a picture from the very early morning. Out here you can see the fume stack. I mean, this is a power plant based on coal. And these are our big wind turbines on my island. We actually make a fence towards these smokestacks so pollution won't come over to our island. We can actually automatically rev up this wind turbine to blow away the smoke that come over here. So this, I just live around this corner here. My house is just over here on the hill. It's a really beautiful island. Have you been there? You've been there? Did we meet? Usually I'm looking around in any city, I'm looking around for people, familiar faces. So I would have seen you there. So sustainable island is a definition. This is a structured society as it is today. This is how all the fields look like. This is how streets look like. This is when I fly to Colorado or fly over, everything is squares and divided into units and circles, but it's circles in squares. Yeah, that makes it a little bit more creative in a way, but that's because the machine runs that way. So this is the divine difference in a way. You can say that this is more sustainable than this is because this allows other biological living creatures kind of space there. We can live side by side with trees and structures and insects and other things. It's biodiversity more than anything. I think biodiversity is interesting. How do we allow biodiversity? Are you familiar with a little kingdom in the Himalayas called Bhutan? Do you know that? Their GDP is defined as gross national happiness, which is, I mean, it sounds a little bit naive. There's probably somebody who will think that, yeah, that's fine. They don't have any means at all. They're poor as rats, and they have a top-down kingdom. But if you look into their constitution, the gross national happiness is an index thing, and they have like 60 different indexes for when you can be happy, when you can allow yourself to be happy. This is something about health, education, how much forest there is in the country, and all these sort of things. It's actually very interesting and very inspiring to see that. So this is more or less what I say here. We can allow ourselves to be sustainable when we kind of do it in a good, broad understanding of how other creatures will live. These are people from Samso. I mean, they look more or less like you do. Maybe somebody is a little crazy people, but they are good people like Samso. It's just to say that we are normal people, but I have never heard anybody talking about climate change. I mean, this is the image of, and this is what we think about climate change and CO2 or carbon dioxide. It's something out there. There's some ventilation going on here now. But otherwise, in half an hour, this would be a dangerous place to be in because the carbon dioxide would be very high. We'd have a climate change program in here working, and somebody would open a window. But we can't do that in Earth. We can't just open a window when the emission is too high. So this, I mean, I think it's too abstract for normal people to think about climate change. So when we talk about changes, we talk about historical moments where we actually did change things. So your introduction, Mark, was very spot on, because I try to involve people by making them remember their history. How did we solve problems in the old days? We actually built wind turbines, or windmills, old mills. We have had more than 100 windmills on Samso, because it was very practical. You couldn't have more than 2 kilometers, or a mile and a half between the windmills, because that was the time you could allow to spend traveling from your farm, after the morning milking, to the mill, get your grains milled, and back again before the evening milking. So that defined the distance between windmills. No kind of environmental assessments reports or anything like that. It's much more like a pragmatic thing. And by this historical kind of memory of how we solved problems in the old days, we can make a vision for the future and imagine and believe we can erect these turbines. These are actually physical. This is not a computer animation. These are real wind turbines from Samso. We erected these turbines 5 years after we were elected to be the energy island. I mean, they were for 6 months the biggest wind turbines on Earth, and the biggest offshore wind installation. They were, of course, they have already been taken over many times by much bigger installations. When we introduced this before, I mean, when we met with people and talked about the old days, people said, yeah, but that was in the old days. Everything was more easy in the old days. It was more easy, and people were kind of much more in a closer relation. They helped each other out and made things. And I think it was more complicated, and people didn't have the same means. So they didn't believe we could make them, but after 5 years, they were up and running and owned by people on Samso. We financed them and owned them ourselves, and they actually feed into the Samso energy grid. So what's the problem? Are we talking about war, peace, security of supply, and all these sorts of things? I don't think so. That is not the driver that drives a farmer or a citizen from Samso if he believes that he'll be out of resources quite soon. What really drives him is the financial balance of this. This is one of Randy's slides. The first time I saw it, I laughed too much and didn't understand why he put this picture. But but you can see what is wrong with this picture. This is America today. Here you have the president, he's over here, and here you have the American resource, and here you have the American lifestyle. This is the picture. And this is Denmark. It could be any nation. It is exactly the same everywhere. So you could say, what is wrong? The donkey is a healthy donkey, little strong donkey. It's worthwhile, it's money, but it's not big enough for the load. So to bring it back again, the usual way of doing it is to introduce more oil, to pump more oil, to create growth and prosperity, more jobs, and kind of energize society so we can have kind of the wheel spinning again. That's the usual way of doing that. But the problem is that this is a loan we are making. If we pump more oil, it'll be kind of a very short story. But the reason why we kind of put this load up here is to discuss how can we change the lifestyle. We said to the Samso citizen, we are going to save 20% of your present energy consumption before we do any installations of any kind here. And they said, well, that's not possible. We live in old houses and we don't have the means. We are poor people. We can't do that. But of course we could, because it is sometimes very expensive to be poor, because you choose the wrong solutions. But we asked the banks to make us bank loans so we could refurbish houses and put in more insulation. When we asked people, have you insulated your house? They naturally said, yes, of course we have. We are thinking people and recent good people. They said, can I see it? Yeah, we can see it. When we crawl up the ladder up the attic, it was maybe insulated 30 years ago. And there was like half an inch of insulation left there. Everything was stepped on and boxes and old furniture and the kids' college boxes were sitting up there, waiting to be picked up, which they probably never would be. They're just forgotten about, and there's no insulation at all. So we could put in, like, instead of this, 30 centimeters and insulate, and that would be paid back in 2 years. And the bank, they liked that. They said that this investment is really good because oil price would probably go up, which they actually did. Oil prices, when we started in 1997, was about $30 per barrel on the world market. 10 years later, it was $130. So the initial investment we made in the beginning of this project was paid back much faster than we actually predicted in the first hand. So when is the best time to do things? This is now. So this is interesting. This is Samso in the 10-year development. You could say we used to have individual heating system in the houses. We don't have a gas pipe. You're on gas, aren't you? You're kind of hooked on gas. Somebody kind of lured you into this, so you're hooked on gas. You're kind of addicts, gas addicts. We are not, luckily, because nobody wanted to send a pipe all the way to Samso, so we avoided that. But we were on oil. That was another addict. So we were on oil, but all the houses had oil. So district heating made sense. Do you know what district heating is? Like you have a central boiler, and then you pump around hot water in a pipe system, and then you have a distribution system to all the houses. Every house has a heat exchanger. So thereby we can spread this, and we could change from oil to biomass produced locally. So this is straw from farms, wood chip from forest, and any other biomass that can burn. So exchange this has taken 75% of all heating out now to district heating, and the rest is heat pumps, wood pellets, and solar panels in private houses, which is out of reach. I mean, some people live not nearby the villages. They live in kind of isolated one house at a time. We can't serve them also, but this works. Wind power, we established 11 megawatt wind turbines on the island. And these 11 turbines, they are producing 25 million kilowatt hours per year, which is the same as we consume on the island. So this is making us self-sufficient. The charm of this is that these turbines is on farmland. So we had a very interesting discussion with the farmers. We asked them, do you want to participate in this green development? And they kind of looked at us and said, participate? No, we want to own it. This is also how farmers respond to things also. Because they own the land, they also have the right to erect wind turbines. So we said to them, that's maybe not such a good idea that you own everything, because you have villagers that live nearby these installations. They're probably not like you to erect wind turbines just in front of their windows. So maybe it's a good idea that you invite them to be co-owners. So in each of these installations, there's one of them, usually the middle one, is owned by a co-op, where they invited the surrounding neighbors in the villages to be co-owners of the project. And you know what? It makes such a difference to be owner of a wind turbine or to be a neighbor to a wind turbine you don't own. It sounds much better. It sounds like money in the pocket. It looks better. There's no shadows, there's nothing like it. It's a very proud machine that's just sitting out there. Very beautiful, because it's mine. So this is how it works. So then for the last thing was transportation, to offset transportation, because we couldn't change diesel cars and tractors and ferries also to this. So we actually decided to offset. So we built 10 big offshore wind turbines to offset that. Each one was 2.3 megawatt. And they are producing 80 million kilowatt hours per year. And this is all exported we have a cable to the mainland. And this is all exported to the mainland to compensate. So the CO2 emission from the coal-fired power plants will be reduced the same amount as we produce when we drive our car or the ferry. And the charm is that we now own the facility, and the profit from the production stays on the island instead of being imported as oil or electricity, and we have to buy it at a reasonably high price, and all profit stays outside the island. So this makes us able to buy things and do things and make decisions on our own. So actually now the local municipality or local town has ordered a new ferry that will sail on gas, LNG, which allows us to work on a biogas plant where we will upgrade methane from biogas digester to feed the ferry. So that's, again, a local circle that will be operational. So we can say mission complete. We are now 100%. We have reduced the CO2 emission by 140%. That's not possible. But that's because we brag a little bit, we include the export. Is that okay? You understand? We have now reduced the CO2 emission, so each citizen of Samso has an emission of minus 3.7 tons. Where average Denmark has, per capita, has an emission of 10 tons per capita. I don't know what it is in America. 20, I think so. 20. But it cost us quite a lot of money. So it cost us in 10 years, $78 million in 10 years, shared by 4,000 people. So that's a lot of money per capita. It's not that we have had a discussion with each individual citizen. The town has invested in 5 out of 10 wind turbines, and also some of the district heating systems. They have given a town guarantee for the loan on behalf of the citizen. There's all kinds of arrangements, but the whole installation has cost us $78 million, and the payback window is approximately 10 years for all these installations. So it's actually profitable and bankable. We can go to any bank and get it financed. So why not? So there's no reason. It's not more expensive than what we had before. Of course, the utility company is not that happy that we actually changed this, because they don't own it. And you can say, how did we get onto this? Because we have a policy in Denmark which is interesting. We haven't sold out everything and privatized it. So the utility companies are operated as kind of private companies, but the grid, the infrastructure, is owned by citizens and organized by state. So this is actually a very good structure, because this means that the utility companies are not in a position where they can reject a proposal for a wind project. The government, the local national government, will come up with their energy bill and say, we want to be 20% self-supplied by renewables. We will do that by raise the feed-in tariff for wind turbines, so that'll be an inspiration for people to invest in it. And the utility companies has to accept that and buy the electricity by law. That's a Danish energy law. So there's a control we can do that, because we also have net metering from solar panels and stuff like that. So these are, I mean, in 2050 we're going to do this. I don't want to get in detail. Just to show you what we have a plan for 2050, both for my island and for Denmark. Denmark has a strategy to be 100% fossil-free by 2050, which is really ambitious. And probably, I'm an old farmer now, saying that sounds very expensive. It'll probably never happen and be too expensive. Leave me out of it. So we follow this. So the vision for Samso 2.0 is that we will be fossil-free by 2030 by all these things here. But the most important is maybe strengthening of the local community and be producing 200% renewable energy, because this is good business for us. This is apart from the potatoes and the cabbage and all the other things we sell from the island and the tourism we have, energy is our business. We sell green energy to the rest of Denmark and also to the Nordic countries. This is to-do list, and there's many different things here. This is a public to-do list. This is kind of an action plan that everybody on Samso knows. So the plumber and the carpenter and the businessman, they can see what we're up to, and they can actually make up their mind if they want to be part of this process and actually participate in the development.
Excuse me, what's visual consumption?
Which one? It is what we try to say. This is the obvious things. The visual consumption is the things that is extra. This is I think. Try to ask it again. There's a long explanation for this, and it'll kind of be a little bit boring now. So we try to make a local master plan based on a resource plan and an action plan. This is also a well-known figure. We base it on what we have here. How much biomass do we have? How much solar? How much wind? What's the potential? And how can we organize it in a structured master plan? Do we have any engineers here? Is there any engineers in the room? There's one, two, there's a couple here. I have to admit I have a problem with engineers. They are the most arrogant bastards I know. I mean, they know everything, and they're so smart, these guys, and they can. Lawyers are worse. Or what did you say? All right. Maybe you're right. But on the other hand, I love engineers because I can call my friend the engineer and say, "Will you please make a calculation? Can you fix this for me?" And engineers, they can fix anything. If they're up to it, they can fix it. And this is the charm of it. But don't let them plan it. Because the planning is a much more holistic thing. And this is why we think that the ownership of this is interesting. This is actually where we transform the plan into local possibilities, where we show the money, show the what's in it for me to everybody who lives in the community. What's in it for me here? Also the government, what's in it for the government? Because they have a lot of credit. They obtain a lot of credit from us doing this. Every time the Prime Minister is somewhere, they tell him, how are things going in Denmark? And what about Samso, the island? The famous island, you know. And in the beginning, his staff, they called us and said, please update us on the information, because they keep on asking how this interesting island project is going. And when we have established ownership and actually defined who will do what in the project, it's not just a philosophical project or a theoretical project, it's a very pragmatic project where everybody can see the bits and pieces and see where is that, what's in it for me in the project. Then we can start the transformation, and not before. It won't happen before. This is structured. You don't understand what it is. These are all the projects we have made. This is a collective investment in the project, and this is a savings per year, and this is a simple payback time on all these projects. We try to set it up in one project and not a lot of different projects, because otherwise some of the projects will not be feasible. But if we set it up in one structure, some of the longer payback periods will be paid for by the shorter payback periods. So you then you then help the other projects. Otherwise, one at a time, you just evaluated this and you say the expensive projects, they are nice but not profitable. So they won't be activated. But we have to kind of see this in a holistic perspective. This is my island. From south to north, there's 30 kilometers. I don't know what it is. That's 15 miles or 12 miles. Pardon? Oh, we don't have time for that. So this is Samso. Here you have the beautiful. This is a jungle. This is a nature resort, nature park. We have a lot of little islands. There's a seal colony, 300 seals living out here. There's a bird migrating area. It's beautiful. I mean, it's like Vermont. Up here you have a little settlement of 400 people. There will never be any wind turbines in this area. Up here you have a little settlement of 400 people. They speak a different dialect. They used to, before cars, there was no reason to go to the South Island, cross the jungle. There was dangerous animals down there, and you wouldn't go there. So they went in their Viking boats up to the north, and they speak a northern dialect on something. They find different dialect. And here on the South Island, we speak a different dialect because we used to sail to the south and to the west. Here we have the capital of Samso. Up here they have been isolated for many years, and actually there's a report made by a doctor in 1903, I think, who actually identified there was a lot of inbred families there. There was long winters, they didn't know what to do. They have a bit different bone constructions, and they are kind of alternative intelligent in many ways, these people. Do you know any of them?
Yes, it's part of my relative, but how do you do the energy storage or?
Hang on, this is keep that in mind. This is not right now, but we will talk about it. It's not to avoid it. Even I could try to do that. But these are inbred families up here. Down here we have the smart people. Here we have the capital. I live down here in this area of the island. You probably guessed that already. But here we have the capital of Samso. This is where the Wall Street, downtown, Red Lake, and this is where all the action is for these forts. And this is also the town hall is here, the mayor's office is here. Every year, once a year, he's invited with his members of the committee up to the North Island. Every time they discuss why on earth are you not listening to us up in the North Island? Whenever you make a decision, it's also always centralized around the south part of the island without listening to reasonable good suggestions from the North Island. They think it's too centralized, and they want a more decentralized structure in decision making. There's only 15 kilometers from here to here, and still they think that nobody pays attention to what they think and how they act in this respect, which is interesting. So you can say that this is maybe a sign of how far away does democracy reach out, and where people feel involved in the process. Not very far. Imagine when the White House sends out the message, how that is translated several times before it meets the wishes in the West or in the Midwest or just outside town, actually. So this is Denmark. Over here we have Sweden, and here we have Copenhagen. So, and here's Germany. So Samso, you can see Samso is right in the center of Denmark. You can see that. It's a lot of islands here. I have known that always, that we are the center of Denmark. Copenhagen, they think they're central because they are not really central. They are almost Swedish. This is Europe. You can see this is the new European Union. And when we kind of embrace all of Europe, Samso is right in the center of Europe. This is cool. We also knew that I've been awarded also European prizes and awards. So the European Union, they know about this. We will manage energy best practice for 2 years in a row, which is cool also. This is the world. And I guess you believe that Boulder or surroundings was the center of the universe, which is probably also is for you guys. And my point is that we have a tendency to say that we are obliged to think global and act local. You know this phrase? It's kind of like a mantra. Think global and act local, think global and act local. But I don't think we actually pay much attention to it because we are much more concerned about what's happening here than what's happening globally. We have some politicians that love to travel around to big top COP meetings or OECD meetings and other meetings, and nothing really comes out of that. But they have a lot of meetings, and that's probably good for them. But what's good for us is that we think and act where we are. So think and act local. So the next wise step you take from home, from your community. So this is interesting also in the perspective of, if you think that in many communities, then you have a lot of action in many different places. So if you try to solve the global problem, you'll solve nothing. It'll only be kind of noise and political talks and no real action. But if politics is kind of translated to local action, then a lot of little actions will be one big action. So why buy into it? Survival of the community is interesting. I mean, we see young people, they move away from our society, always. They never come back. We have a brain drain. We can also say the smartest stay back. I like to say that because I'm still there. But they do, and I feel sorry about that because we need young people in the society. Community is also young entrepreneurial people who don't kind of believe in the old stuff. This is interesting. We need more jobs, better local economy, and independence. I mean, the independence, not like the oil independence, but more the independence from bureaucracy, independence from governance, from top down, but more local responsibility. So independence, so you're able to make your own decisions. This is actually interesting. CO2 neutrality is also interesting, but not a driver, which energy democracy is. If you can call it energy democracy, I have a saying in my own society. I have a saying in my choice of electricity. I can choose green energy if I want to. Can I ask my big utility to serve me green energy? Well, if they see a business potential in it, they can, but otherwise they can't, unless they are asked to do it by governance or by other political means. And then local activity. I don't know if you have contractors here in your country, but we have some big, strong contractors. They usually have some big stomach muscles. They're well built. They have John Deere caps, and they kind of have big diggers and tractors and stuff like that. They want them to work, these machines, and they like to have contracts. When we make district heating, there's a lot of trenching and piping and drilling and all these sort of things, and they like that. They actually call me every now and again and say, in the winter time especially, say, when do we make the next district heating? We have some hours where we don't do too much here in the winter time. So any contracts here. So any contract is a good contract. Whether it's green or black, doesn't really matter. So green energy is development. I have this idea that we need to make some pictures, images of what we're talking about. So the campfire is interesting as an image of what we want here, kind of a burning platform for what we do here. Have you been sitting around a campfire lately? It's really nice. Somebody brings some beer, some brings sausages, and some brings a guitar, and then we have a good time. And we relax, and we can sit and look in these flames for hours and do nothing at all. We feel at home. I think it's in the reptile brain. We can remember that when we were sitting around the campfire, we were safe and home and not chased by some big dinosaur or whatever we were chased by. So this is still a memory we have here, and sitting around the campfire is interesting. I use this as a metaphor for development. We need to build a campfire and describe what we want here. So the project is visible and clear for people what it is. Somebody brings some sticks, somebody brings something else to this campfire. And then we collect people around the campfire. It is the farmers and the teachers and the hippies and the newcomer from Copenhagen and all the people. They are gathered around the same fire. Because we have a tendency to make our own fires. So we don't want to sit around the fire with these dirty farmers, and we don't want to sit with the academics, or we don't want to sit with others. So we have our own little campfires around in the places, and that's a shame. In the community, we were depending in the common structure, we were depending on participating, all of us. We couldn't leave anybody out. And it has nothing to do, sometimes in America people ask me, but that you can do that because you are a socialist. I don't think so. I'm a farmer, come on. I might not be a socialist, but I'm definitely social. And that's a clear difference in this perspective. This is what we do in Denmark. We have a big fireplace. And then we have all the systems operating around this fireplace, feeding into the same system. We have a decentralized structure with a lot of combined heat and power, wind turbines, solar panels, and all kinds of installation. We also have surplus energy from companies. Big companies that have some process heat from cooking, from boiling, from things. It's sent out in the grid and sold and will become district heating in projects. We will never waste cooling out in a river or in the sea. That's illegal in Denmark. You can't do that. So it makes reason to do a thing like this because we have an existing grid and a system that can absorb, that can obtain this and use it, make use of it in structures. It's not rocket science. You know everything about it. This is just tapping with regulated or with tested and trusted energy installations. We can do this. We use biomass. This is how we use it actually. These are Danish biomass facilities all over Denmark, decentralized heat and power systems. They're everywhere. So we can say we can actually block some of the areas. These are the red dots is reminiscences from the history of central power stations. They are going to disappear in the future. That's a plan. They will disappear completely because we can't have these big heavy power plants because they cost too much. And the power companies, they'll say to them, it's not at all profitable to have wind power or decentralized structures. That's because they have these big units and they cost too much to keep idling. And to be able to kind of get rid of them, we need to make another structure here, which is a combination of a decentralized structure. This is Denmark connected to Sweden and Norway and Germany. And you can say this happens in a North Pole situation where we exchange electrons all the time. We send them to Norway. When we have too much wind power, we send them to Norway. Norway is so fortunate they have a lot of hydropower. So they shut the gates of the hydropower station and buy very cheap energy from Denmark. Any Norwegians here? I have a problem with Norwegians. They are so rich, they should help us, Denmark, because they've struck oil out in the North Sea. Maybe we're a little envy, I don't know. It's not right, because when we buy the electricity back again from the hydropower station, it's twice as expensive as when we sold it. And that's, of course, because wind power is intermediate and hydropower is a controlled source. But this is back to the storage thing. We actually store wind power in hydropower dams in Norway. That's one example. Or we store it in the big system where we actually exchange it with solar panels or biogas from Germany and all the other systems. We don't have a standby storage system only for heating. For the big solar panels, we have big thermos, big containers that keeps hot water for 2, 3, 4 days, maybe a week. We can extend this. This is short time storage, but we don't have electronic storage capacity yet, but we are working on it. District heating is interesting. Maybe I don't want to get in details with this. This is technology any plumber can fix. It's very easy, or farmer. This is called the press loves us. We have been covered by anything that kind of writes or is published on TV media. We've been everywhere. This is really interesting. And sometimes I call one of the farmers and said, we have an American TV company, I think it's called CNN. Do you want to make an interview? And this guy says, no, not today. Not again. Find somebody else who can do that. And I think that's very interesting. This story has been told a billion times, and it's still a good story. People keep on coming here. But that's a very nice very nice program. You can find it on PBS, Public Broadcasting Service in America. It's called Earth Manual. There's 3 programs, 3 one-hour documentaries. It's really cool, very good, very fine job. All right, I need to say that this is the Queen of Denmark. She's been on Samso. This is her prince. They were here to study. He was very interested in if the royal castle could be green. Could we put some solar panels on the roof and have some heat pumps? And he'd like to have a Tesla to drive around in. This is the Korean group. We signed an agreement or cooperation on a small island in Korea. These are students from a college in America. I don't know which one, but we have a lot of students coming over also. And these are people from municipalities in Denmark on study tours on Samso. So we are now an energy meeting place. Samso is a meeting place, a hub of meeting things. And we will operate on the climate change challenge in security of supply and industry and economy. This is society talking. So this is what everybody is asking about. But when they come to Samso, we slowly kind of lead them into the discussion about community and how does community respond to these things. This is what is interesting. So why is Samso interesting? Not because of security of supply and all the other things, but because we educate craftsmen and skills with people so they can do things. Because we need people to be able to fix things. If we're going to fix the climate, we need to be able to fix the machines, the installations that can do this. The municipality, the town, this is the mayor. He kind of developed a little pneumonia, I think something in his hands because he cut so many ribbons. But he loves it. He thinks it's a good thing. He'll also be re-elected. It's the farmers, they like it. They can sell their biomass as a fuel. They think it's great, it's grand. The green people like us too, the hippies, the first movers, they like us too. This guy, he's feeding his tractor with canola, with rapeseed oil. And the only thing that's different, as he says, it gets him a little bit hungry because it smells like Kentucky Fried Chicken when he revs it up. But apart from that, it's performing just as good as any other tractor. So this is cool. And the daycare, they take the kids out from a very early age. They involve them. We have open windmill days so they can come and see the wind turbine. They think that is grand. We help citizens by applications and paperwork when they do the installation. And the local business selling wood pellet stoves and other things also. Schools make educational programs, and we have a lot of tourists. We have I have personally 6,000 visitors visiting my office every year from all over the world, which is interesting. So this is what it's all about. This is community thriving on green development. This is what makes it cool, not so much the technical installations or the height of the wind turbine, but the systems in operation. This is my old math teacher. I didn't like him much in the old days. Maybe because I was not very good at mathematics. But he said that one day he had one of these calculators with a solar charger, and one day I'll have a charger on my roof. That could be cool. So when he retired, he's actually quoted, I think, in New York Times for saying that it's so much cooler to have my savings on the roof than in the bank. And I think after the financial bubble, he's so right. Because then all his money was devaluated with quite a lot of value. So now he's the most concerned energy prosumer of all on Samso. When he walks his dog, he's looking at his meter. If it runs backwards, he is in business. I'm selling electricity to the big system. So I'm thriving business, I'm a businessman now. If it's running the other way around, he's buying electricity. You see, the dog will not be walked that day. Because he'll rip everything out of the wall and shut anything down, but he just don't want to buy electricity. So it's funny how a little installation in the roof where you are a prosumer makes you aware of your energy consumption. Do all you guys know your energy bill? I'm these concerned people that's here today, but a lot of people don't. Do you know what electricity costs per kilowatt hour? No? And things like this. This guy, he knows it to the dime. I mean, he knows exactly what it's worth. And this is interesting. This makes us much more interested in our surroundings. This is me and my friends here. We made this project. It was a huge, big project. I can't really translate right now. I need an engineer by my side. But it was the most expensive project of all the projects we made here. And it was on time, and it was on budget. Because, I mean, it couldn't be different. If we had failed there, I wouldn't have been here today. I've been working somewhere in Alaska, somewhere very far away. Because it was the people's money I was handling. These are up and running now. This is owned by people. This is a co-op, and 5 of them are owned by the town, and the other ones are owned by kind of investment groups, like 10 people that got together and said that we'll buy a wind turbine. We'll put our money in that. We believe that this is a good investment. This is interesting. We take the owners out to see the turbines. They enjoy that. They bring pizza and beer, and we have a grand tour where we see our own machines here working in operation. And I'm there to tell about it. I think I own a little bit of the Red Wing here also. These are the real owners. You see, this is my old math teacher. This is in the factory where they produce this. I believe that you also have some factories from Vestas Wind Company in Colorado. Green energy means jobs. This is also real in Samso. This is not in Samso, but in Denmark. These guys, they are some of the investors and the owners. Really could. We put them in a bus and went all the way to the factory to see how they made the installations there. It was really cool to see these guys go around here. Some of them maybe had an investment of $600 or something like that. That's one share. Some had like $200,000 or more than that. It's very different, but this is what the community capacity is. Not equal, but it's what the individual can actually come up with. And these guys kind of went around and said, this is good stuff. Let's buy 10 of these guys. And I could see how they actually grew from this entrepreneurial attitude to things. So they had a hard time getting in through the door on the bus because they were really big guys and working their way on this. And after this, when we communicated about this, and they kind of approached us and said, what is next? Which is, before that, they said, what will be next, with the fear in their eyes? I mean, what will come up now? What is next? It's out of an interest. What can we actually invest in? What can we participate in the future? To make this happen, we need reliable policy. Do you know what that means? We need brave politicians. Do you know what that means? Do you have any? I mean, politicians, they are really, I admire people who run for office, because that's really a dangerous job. As soon as you are elected, everybody will be shooting at you and shouting at you, because then you are a politician and then you're kind of the enemy for some reason. But this is really interesting. Brave politicians, this is a very rare species, because as soon as you are elected, you have to start your re-election campaign. And to be re-elected, you are not supposed to make big investments, long-term investments. I mean, you have to be re-elected within a couple of years. And energy investments is like 10 years or 20 years. And who will make these brave investment policies for people and still believe they will be re-elected? Everybody who is in the opposition will shout at them and say to them, this man, he's not a serious politician. He is wasting people's money. And we can't have a good discussion about that because we don't own it. These are the reasons. And then I think we need local individual action plans where we feel connected. Strong community networks where we can organize so we can be connected in a collaboration and kind of build trust. And then we need more local heroes. I don't know if I'm a good one, but I know a lot of people who are leaders, natural born leaders. And you have to identify them and find them and give them some responsibility and support them and help them. and try to embrace them and shelter them so they don't end up being politicians. Because then they are lost again. Then you have kind of built them up and then they're lost again. Somebody else can be politicians, and maybe also some of you can be politicians to support the leader, because he needs some space, or they need some space and some kind of ingenuity and creativity to build on, because they are believers and they believe in things that nobody else can see. This is really interesting. So, how does it work in the market? This is just from internet. There's a company in Denmark called Grundfos. They make some really good pumps. This factory, they have made a how we think and act feature on their website. And this how we think and act is about Samso, my island. So it's a big multinational company. They use Samso as a story to sell pumps in the world because they are very energy efficient. This company used to be a pump company, a factory that produced pumps. The new steering committee has kind of come up with a new philosophy where they say in the future we are an organization that works with water. Isn't that beautiful? They're just an ignorant manufacturer anymore. Now they are part of a process. And they use Samso as a story to boost and tell this story also. Somebody called it strategic storytelling. I don't know if you know that. It is, in other words, manipulation. But strategic storytelling, I like that because that's a positive way of doing it. Because of course you tell stories about things you want to happen. If you date a girl, I mean you guys, you probably also tell a story that's a little bit different about your own kind of capacity and what you do. And strategic storytelling. I think that's a very good thing, and it's okay. It's honest enough because it serves a purpose. So how do we pass on the project? We have the Energy Academy with built-in solar panels. This is my house where we work, not my personal house, but my job. We have a lot of visitors every year. They come home and study this. I think there should be energy houses, energy academies in each community or kind of in surroundings here where we can meet and talk about these things. I know you have NREL. This is a beautiful place. I just visited it today. NREL is a fantastic institution where they do things that we need and test and develop and research stuff like this. But this is actually a little bit too academic. A lot of people will not go there because they don't really belong to this place. It's kind of out of my league somehow. So we don't talk about this. So we need kind of simple places, meeting houses. We had meeting houses in rural areas in the old days. We need to talk about the future. This is not my future. This is an electric car. I wouldn't like to drive one of these ones. That was one of the first Danish electric cars. Many people kind of thought this must be for disabled people or something like that. This is not a vehicle of my kind of standard. But maybe this is. I mean, this is a new Tesla. I love it. I tried it also. It was like being in a rocket. So if this is the future I'm on, and I think electric cars will solve many of the problems, maybe also for storage. If you guys, you used to make all the fun stuff, you Americans, all the fancy cars and the big stuff. So why don't you come up with some batteries that can last and drive us a little bit longer and kind of boost this technology a little bit, because we're waiting for the right technology, and then we'll drive these cars. And then we can have more wind power in the system, because then we can use the cars as the battery. And plug in the company we work in the daytime, they can use the energy. So we can share all this capacity. There's so many potential in this. This is the royal prince sitting there. He was not allowed to drive it because he was a little bit drunk. We had a reception before this. So this is America. I had a meeting. I have been meeting with Pentagon 2 times in my career in America. And the first time I didn't believe my ears when I had an invitation. I thought I will never get a permission to get in there. But Admiral John Nathan, he is part of a retired service group that works on greening the military, which is interesting. They have these green intentions because security of supply is essential for an army. If they run out of supplies, they are lost out there. So he said with his word, this is America. We're pretty good at getting stuff done. We need to get this one done too. And he means green development. We said the military academy is the most developed district heating systems in America. They fly 50% on bioethanol with the jet fighters. And they have done a lot of very interesting things. I actually asked them, does that mean that you kind of are making sustainable warfare in America? And they actually did laugh a little bit. So what are we doing the next year? This is the Energy Academy. We're going to make a campus where we want you guys to come over and stay. And I think also the campus thing, these are for institutions. I've been lecturing at colleges in America, and all these places, they have their own wind turbines, they have solar panels, they have all sorts of things. I mean, walk the talk and do the things that's needed. I had a lecture at MIT in Cambridge, near Boston. You know MIT? MIT is, in our part of the world, the most famous engineering university in the world. And I was lecturing in a very old building where the window structure was leaking. I mean, there was draft in there, and the ventilation was awful. It was hot on one side and cold on the other side. It was really, really bad. And I asked them, is this MIT? I mean, what are you doing here? You are teaching the engineers to make the future planning here. Can I see your heating system? Yeah, that's good. We have district heating. Then we went 2 blocks behind the institution, and they had this First World War steam engine sitting there producing hot, high-pressure steam to serve the facilities. What is happening here? This is crazy. Yeah, but we don't own it. We rent the facilities. Come on. So no wonder you're not making kind of a green revolution here, a green development, because you are not walking the talk. So green tourism, electric cars, biogas, prepare for energy price development. We believe energy prices will keep on going, rocketing. More wind turbines. We believe we can have space for more. We are not Vermont. We are Samso. We want to be 100% organic. Try, because food is also energy. And we have. I sometimes make reason with farmers. They say, "Don't go this organic." I mean, I'm not a hippie. I said to them, "This is not about hippie. This is about good housekeeping. You buy very expensive fertilizer and chemistry to run this thing, and you get a very low price for your products. At one time, this is out of balance, and you don't make a profit anymore. Let's try to look at it from a different perspective." And this makes reason for farmers, because they can figure out where to make the money. And then you need kind of, this is again a cartoon hero. I don't look like a hero. This is to get the things done, to get the pieces together is interesting. Let people meet and organize. I made a book about this actually, the commodity. Is it okay to make a little commercial here? It's actually dropped a little bit. It's only $9 on price now. It's a sale. Because I discovered that Amazon, if you make the price $9.99, then they charge you 30% of the cost. And if it's more than $10, then they charge you 60% of the price, because they want you to put cheap books on the so everybody can buy them. I think that's okay. I mean, for some reason, I'm not going to be living rich from selling books, but this book is about the commodities, and I'd like you to study that. This is a little promotion. It could be interesting if we could make a movement around the world, because this is also happening in Japan. I have a lot of friends and a lot of projects in Japan where we start talking about community power, re-empowering the society after Fukushima to rebuild the infrastructure of Japan. And they trust this also. So I'll send you a message when the website is up and running, so we can write the next chapter, the bolder chapter about commodities. And this is it. I don't know if I overdid my time, probably. I used to do that.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Okay.
Still for some questions? So I'd like to leave a little time for questions, and then we have a reception next door. But I know there'll be some questions from this group. And thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. There's some mics in the back. And generally, we like to take the first question from a student, if possible. So don't be shy. Søren will take his own questions. Mike, right here.
So, I'm Mike Weissman. I'm a third-year student here. I was really interested in the map that you had that looked like a very large number of small local-scale CHP or cogeneration facilities around. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the national kind of legal framework that allows that to happen, net metering, sort of required purchase by the utility, how it all fits together.
Yes. The decentralized structure was decided a long time ago. It's actually going back to a structure where every town had its own electricity company. I think that is also the same in your area. So that's the old stuff. That's how it was organized. So then we made a centralized structure, and we discovered that is inefficient to have a big structure, because the big structure needs to be idling at all times, because it needs to have the capacity to meet the peak load demands. So somebody calculated, probably an engineer and a lawyer and I don't know who did that. But they figured out it would be cheaper to make the people invest in this. And this is also a little pragmatic, that the people share this. Actually, the cost is a little bit higher for people when it's decentralized. Because there's this funny relation between industry and citizens. Industry demands cheap energy at all times. So when they negotiate with the government or the utility, they buy big parts of energy, and they get it at a much cheaper price than citizens do. So the extension of things will be paid by citizens, not by industry, which is interesting. Have you ever thought about that? You have been paying for the infrastructure in time. You actually own it. You own it, but you're not signed for that. So when we made a decentralized structure where we tried to get rid of oil, the only way to do that was to find out where we find the resources, and that was local produced straw. But it's not profitable to drive the straw from one end of the country to the other. So it's much easier to make the utilities where the consumption was and where the resources was. So to make that happen, they made a feed-in tariff and a kind of a basic subsidy program where they said to them, if there's no infrastructure there before, you can have 20% of the total cost as a direct subsidy from the government. And from then on, if you are very energy efficient, if your profit margin or your efficiency measures is high, then you get a feed-in tariff that is higher. If you're not very good at it, administration, you get a lower feed-in tariff. To try to kind of control and teach and educate people a little bit to be more energy efficient by that, and then using local products. So that was the main reason to do it. And the utility companies hated it because they were then supposed to kind of follow up on that and co-administrate the system. And of course they said that it is too expensive. And that was because they had these big machines sitting there. And that is the problem all the time, that the big installation. If you build one big nuclear power plant in a place, then you have your handcuffed because this installation has to be paid back, kind of in the interest of society. Or you have a big gas infrastructure. This was one of the problems in Vermont also. They are having a gas pipe from the oil fields or the tar sand field in Canada, and it'll go straight through Vermont to the state of New York. And they're going to drill a pipe under the Lake Champlain and up on the other side. I understand why they worry about things like that. That is dangerous. Because of course there'll be side pipes hooked onto that, so Vermont will be on gas also. And that'll take away the possibility of making a decentralized structure. Yeah? Maybe you should wait for a microphone. I think we have. Is that okay? Yep. And your name?
Lynn Siegel. Lynn Siegel. Solar thermal. Can you obviate the need for that with your district heating thing, with your boilers and stuff?
Yes, solar panels, solar thermal is good because it is summer sometimes in Denmark. You probably believe that we are in the polar area where it's dark all the time, but it's not. We have like quite a lot of sun hours in the summertime. And then the utility would be idling to produce hot water only for showers to people, and the pipe system will be too inefficient and the heat loss will be quite significant. So there we put in quite large solar installations to meet the summer demand, which is only per summer, and we can put it in a big thermal and keep it there for 2 or 3 days if you have a cloudy day every now and again. And in many of these bigger installations, we have about 25% of the yearly consumption is met by solar panels. So that's quite good, actually, and it makes reason also financially. A lot of people have them on the house also, which cuts down the energy consumption. I have 9 square meters. I don't know what that is in foot, but I have 9 square meters on my house. I shut my heat furnace off because I'm in an isolated place. My house is way out in the countryside. And I have 9 panels, and I've shut my central heating off in May, and I started again the 1st of October. The rest of the time, I'm solemnly relying on solar panels. That's very good. That's very, very good. Yep. Any other things? Are you a student? Okay, come on.
Okay, hi. I guess I'll put in a quick question. I'm Si Wong, and I'm a second-year student with the Environmental Studies program. So I have 2 related questions. I didn't quite catch how you balance out the variable generation of wind, and then what do you do during low load hours, like at night? Do you just cut out the wind turbines?
No, we never cut out the wind turbines. That's secured by law, that wind production is prioritized. So that's the first priority. So they will always feed into the system, no matter what the price on the market is. Some people say if it's too low, then what do you call it, when we use the machine, the lifespan will be shortened and we should maybe shut it off. But we have never shut them off. We can't shut a wind turbine down. I mean, that wouldn't be right. So what happens is that the other utilities, they shut down. Everything that can shut down will do that. The district heating plants will shut down the boilers. And we send remaining power to Norway or to Germany, depending on where it is. Actually, the new distribution system believes that they can, in the near future, make a smart grid where they can operate Denmark as virtual islands. So one part of Denmark can be decoupled and other parts can be connected, depending on where the consumption is. Sometimes we have a gale crossing over Denmark, and it's very windy in the west in the morning, and then it'll be very calm in the evening. But then it's very windy in the east because it travels all over Denmark, and Denmark is not very big, but it takes some hours to cross Denmark. And then you could say you could administrate the energy flow by having these smart meters or smart energy control systems. I don't mention. There's some marketing going on up here. I don't want to listen to that. Yeah, please.
Yep, my name is Marian Klam. I'm an engineer, so just a warning. I'm with a small company. We are trying to produce a device that would help weather forecasting for offshore wind energy systems. And I'm curious, how much do you actually care about weather forecasts, about load planning, energy load planning for the next day? It seems like this is not a problem for your installation, correct?
Do you mean road planning and access to
energy planning? You know, like for example, you plan
load
for load
planning
for tomorrow, or you know, does the energy forecast play any role in your production?
Yeah, well, we need to talk. Every time we make a new structure, we need to talk to the government about that, or the energy authority, energy agency which is the bureaucracy under the energy ministry, and talk to them to get a permission. And because they will discuss, because they own the power lines, so they'll discuss where do we need to extend the grid. And sometimes a new wind development project can be the reason why we extend the grid in an area where it hasn't really been developed and extended. And that is a new possibility, that we use the wind projects to develop areas. So if there's not an existing grid there but that can obtain the load, then if it's reasonable, if it makes reason, then we'll make one. And this is the charm. We have a very developed, we have all the lines, the hanging wires is underground now. So we can have ice storms and trees falling over, we're still online with the system. This is paid for by consumers because we pay per kilowatt hour, kind of a, what do you call it, reinvestment in structures here. The load, I mean, every time we make a new standard, we say we have 50% of electricity in Denmark will be met by wind power by 2020. So till 2020, these guys who are administrating this has to figure out how they'll distribute the load from these different organizations or different production units. And I think it'll be met. Like 20 years ago, they said that 5% wind power in the system is top. We can't, otherwise the system will go wobbly and we can't administrate it anymore. Now we have 25% in Denmark. It is still very reliable. It's very, very good, the system. So I believe it's kind of a hen and the egg. What will come first, the wind turbine project or the proposal, and then the infrastructure, or the infrastructure will kind of make a possibility because the highway out there is wide enough for the production from these turbines. I'm keeping you out of the loop. Do you? All right. Okay.
So we'll do two more questions. Allison and then all the way back.
Søren, I'd like to integrate the last couple of questions with a question wondering if you can shed some light on an issue that's a big deal here right now. And you said a few minutes ago, yes, the solar is effective. We shut it off for 6 months of the year, but it is very effective 6 months of the year. And you've given us several examples now how rotating the source of energy and rotating the costs is cost effective, in fact, is even profitable. And what I'm getting at is what we have with our centralized structure here in the United States. If we have huge stranded costs, and those facing those stranded costs that are dinosaurs, because we had a structure that didn't rotate and didn't microfinance stranded costs as we went. We have this big dinosaur that we're afraid of dealing with now, and it is leading a lot of our legal arguments and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering if you've got something, a little star that you can drop our way on this one.
Star.
Yeah.
I think I understand your problem, but for me it's very difficult to say anything kind of without being a little arrogant. Well, because you'd say that the only way of doing is to make a top-down decision that this has to be kind of broken up in smaller units. It has to be kind of has to be a political decision. Or maybe it can be you're more private enterprise business oriented. So maybe it's somebody will kind of line up a capacity of a buy-in where you say that we are so many consumers, we have so much capacity, we are organized, and we don't want to buy your black electricity anymore, or whatever it is. We want to have it a different. We demand that you produce something else, and set it up as a public demand here. This is a request more than a kind of a demand. But if you don't answer this, we will act differently. I don't know if you can do that, but that's what you're doing. So you could say that's only these two things that's valid. That is kind of the loss of a business potential for the companies. If they can see that this is going the wrong way, they have to act to that. They can either build some wind turbines and do it for you, or they can be ignorant and leave you to do it. I don't know which way is the best for you. Maybe you're not really mature yet, so maybe it's better that the big electric makes it for you. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, my name is Frank P. I've been teaching sustainable energy at this university
So good.
for 10 years and followed the experiments in Denmark with great interest. And one thing that I have concluded, for having this country follow the lead, is to find patient capital.
Patient capital.
In other words, the payback of a sustainable system is of the order of 10 to 15 years if you put it right and engineer it right. Do you get that kind of capital in Denmark?
Well, patient capital is maybe what we did achieve on Samso, where we invited people to invest their kind of savings in energy structures instead of new kitchens and appliances. Saying to them, we need to get this straightened out. If we then make that right, then maybe we can afford a new kitchen afterwards. So I think, if I get you right, I think that is actually what we did here. We didn't have we didn't have capital from investors who expect to have 20% payback within 2 years. We can't, that's not possible. So we need people who say that we actually don't need a dividend for this. Maybe enough to pay our bank rent, which is 2% or 3% max. That's it. And the rest is kind of sitting there for 20 years or however the lifespan of a wind turbine is. I think that is actually how we did it. So I think this is also, well, is it okay to answer?
Yes, please.
I think people in general, no matter how poor they are, they want to be part of something. And of course, it has to be reasonable. And I think they're also ready to pay a little bit extra for the kilowatt hours or for the energy. But they need to understand why. If it's just like tax, then it feels bad. But if it's being part of community, if it's your ticket as to be a member of society in a way, then it is a whole different ballgame. Then you want to participate, and then if you have enough people, then you have a lot of money in this batch to invest in a new structure. But you need to be allowed, you don't want to pay extra to the big utility and see them administrate this for you, because 30% of that is paid back to the stock owners. So that disappears for you. You want to kind of keep a grip on where it's going. This thing. Co-op, the cooperative spirit. That's right.
So we have one last question in the back who's been waiting patiently, and then we're going to go to reception, and we can continue the conversation at the reception all the way back.
I was just wondering if you were involved with the Bornholm project, the smart grid project.
Yes.
And if there's a little competition there between the two islands.
No,
between
there's no
Samso?
competition. We are way ahead of them.
And they're better looking too.
Finish your question.
Well, I was wondering. So, is your island have any plans to sort of copy Bornholm at all, or are they copying you, or how is that working?
No, we have a very close cooperation with the islands. We have an island network in Europe called IsleNet, and we are all members of them. You can look that up also. And Bornholm is a very good project because that's a modern project. They have a very good connection to the Danish Technical University and some of the administration things that's going on there. So they want to test a smart grid, and they call it Bright Green Bornholm, which is the island. So Bright Green means the new organizational structure around making a society green. And I think that is kind of the next generation of Samso. So I praise them in many ways because they are a bigger community. There's 40,000 people, so 10 times the amount of people on Samso. So they might, in the end of the day, if they succeed with it, they will be even a better example than what we have done. We were just the first mover here, but take me right here. We still lead because they have a tough time agreeing on things on Bornholm because they have 40,000 people and they haven't figured out that they have to break it down in small units also on Bornholm. So I'm there quite often and I make the same speeches and tell them that they kind of have a lot of things to learn yet. But it's a nice project. You study the project because there's a lot of good thinking in the new paradigm of Bornholm. Yeah.
So let's thank Søren one more time for a wonderful lecture. The reception right next door, and let's continue the conversation. Thank you.